6.65 million people filed jobless claims last week. Boeing will offer voluntary buyouts to its entire staff of 161,000. The move will preserve much-needed cash at Boeing, which is facing a sharp contraction in demand. There's no telling when carriers will return to normal schedules, no less buying planes. Southwest Airlines said it would apply for federal aid, becoming the second carrier to confirm it will seek assistance. American Airlines already said it would apply for aid. And oil company executives reeling from the massive drop in prices will be meeting with President Trump at the White House tomorrow. Leaders from Exxon, Chevron, Occidental, and Continental Resources will be on hand, sources tell Bloomberg. Crude jumping more than 8% to $22 a barrel. Courtney Dunhope, Bloomberg Radio.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. Ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast. How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team? Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry. Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg. On the Bloomberg Business app or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
This is a vital update from the government about coronavirus. To help save lives, stay at home. Anyone can spread coronavirus. Only leave your home for the following reasons: to shop for basic necessities, to pick up medicine or to provide care to those who need it, to exercise once a day, alone or with members of your household. Only travel to work when you absolutely cannot work from home. If you have to go out for any of these reasons, always stay 2 meters apart. Do not meet others outside your household, even friends and family. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
London, it's time to play Find Unlimited. Get ready to play from wherever you are because we're bringing the game to you. Vodafone and Samsung are giving you the chance to one of thousands of tech prizes, including the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G. What will you find in your area? Play between the hours of 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. You'll have to be quick. Register now at findunlimited.co.uk.
Sat in traffic all day? Sit on the edge of your seat tonight with Sky Star.
Let's get something straight. It's my mission to protect her.
Stay in for an action-packed night with Terminator Dark Fate.
We're in danger, and we'll mess you up.
Watch the latest movie straight from the cinema.
I'm going to help you protect the girl.
Terminator Dark Fate. Available now in Sky Store.
We don't win this one, it's all over.
You love tuning for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
The moves may be choreographed, but the drama is real.
I beg you to come down here right now!
Stay on top of everything happening in the pro wrestling universe with the Body Slamming podcasts on TuneIn. For passionate recaps of the most recent SmackDown, check out the What's Wrong with Wrestling show. And for a pro wrestler's perspective on life and culture at large, listen to Talk is Jericho. For these and more podcasts, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day, April 2nd, 2019. OKC guard Russell Westbrook becomes the second player in NBA history to have 20 points, 20 rebounds, and 20 assists in a game.
First time since 1968.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
Next time on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with our Washington correspondent about the many political battles being waged in the Capitol over how to deal with the new coronavirus.
You couldn't imagine a president personalizing a crisis with a virus, but somehow that's where we are.
Susan Glasser. Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Let's watch for the tweets. And I'm surprised that normally that's the way he does things, but the tweets can be forthcoming.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up here on Bloomberg Markets, if you want one more thing to worry about the pensions, which now are facing a severe underfunded status. We talk about that with Aaron Brown, former head of financial market research at AQR Capital Management. We also talk oil with Stephen Schork, president of the Schork Group. Right now, let's talk some numbers. Greg Jarrett has those for us. Greg.
Thanks, Lisa. That's what I needed. Another thing to worry about. The stocks are up.
Anytime, Greg. Got your back.
You're a giver. Stocks are up, boosted by energy shares as oil rallies. China has unveiled plans to increase reserves. Treasuries are down, and the dollar is up. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is now up 1.7% of 41. The Dow's up 1.7% of 340. And the NASDAQ is up 1.3% up 90. The 10-year is down 132nd with a yield of 0.58%. West Texas Intermediate, as we say, has been surging. It's up nearly 15% at $23.30 a barrel, while COMEX Gold is up 2.5%. At $16.32 even per ounce, the dollar yen is at 107.64. The euro, $1.863, and the British pound, $1.2390. Now, even as the jobless claim soars, you've been hearing about companies around the globe are capitalizing on investors' thirst for debt by moving ahead with larger and riskier bond offerings. T-Mobile is bringing what could be a $10 billion offering, one of the biggest this year. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
Bloomberg opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
It is 10:33 on Wall Street, time for Bloomberg Opinion. Joining us now is Bloomberg Opinion columnist Aaron Brown. He covers all things for Bloomberg Opinion, former chief risk manager at AQR Capital Management. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us. Really fascinating column you have out here, talking to us about how the coming pension fund crisis will play out in the world of COVID-19. What are the key takeaways?
What's going to happen? Well, right now might be something that we create.
One new thing to worry about. I can't do much about the virus, so I'm spending my time thinking about what the world will look like.
We're like everyone else. We're looking at various models.
And one of the things is, this pension fund crisis has been looming for at least 2 decades, maybe 4 decades.
Based on our models, our judgment is obviously
might be the trigger. Losing $1 trillion in asset value from equity market declines and state and local governments being completely strapped, having spent everything they could during this crisis. The world in, say, December 2019 or January 2021, I'm sorry, December 2020, January 2021, people may look around and take a hard look in places like Illinois and New Jersey and Connecticut and say it is now undeniable that these plans will not pay their promised benefits, and we need to restructure. We need to cut benefits. We need to tax benefits. We need to kick in more money. And if you hold municipal bonds in those states, we got to get those creditors to kick in something as well. And it will be a very painful process. It will be something like what happened in Detroit, Puerto Rico, in the last couple of years. But this could be when it happens. If not, maybe we need to go another 4 or 5 years before it happens. But I think you should be at least prepared to see this happen
what the strength of the consumer is going to be once we
Aaron, we say with tongue-in-cheek, another thing to worry about just because it's overload right now with all of the news and the environment that we're in. But you raise a really important point. It's something people have been worried about for years with escalating concern given the blowing out potential obligations of some of these pensions. You put this in a stark relief. You said the declines in the financial markets may have cost these funds, and I imagine we're talking public pensions, right, as much as $1 trillion, leading their underfunded status is basically at what, about 37%? Is that an accurate characterization of what you said?
That is my back of the envelope.
What else is the Federal Reserve
today?
considering here?
It would be about 37% aggregate for the national.
I'm going to be
but
cautious about
the fact that some of these plans are 20%, and some of these plans are 60 or 80%.
Main Street lending program,
the 20% plans that are going to cause the problem.
Speed to try to get
so
up and running,
we're already seeing this in New Jersey with them cutting certain contributions to pensions. Could this end up bankrupting states, or are we going to just see them not pay out obligations?
We want to preserve as many jobs.
Virtually guaranteed to bankrupt the states. I do not believe it is possible to cut pensions without first cutting payments to creditors.
That's public
the pensions have special protection. 48 states have either constitutional or some other sort of super legal protection
situation
for pensions. So it's just going to be impossible for the states, both politically and legally,
clear, as you just said,
cut benefits to pension fund beneficiaries
they have to balance
before they
every year.
default on their
they're not getting tax revenues.
But that doesn't mean they pay zero on the debt. That's impossible too, because they need to keep borrowing money. So you're going to see, creditors taking a maybe 10, 15% hit, beneficiaries taking maybe a 20% hit.
The same way that
the pain will get spread around, but it's still going to be pretty bad, both for municipal bondholders and for pension fund beneficiaries.
President Kaplan, Sarah
So,
Eisinger,
Aaron, has there been anything in that $2 trillion federal fiscal
plan
to address this issue at all?
Indirectly, so giving money to the states, but they're not. The states' spending has gone up much more than they're getting from the federal government. I don't think the federal government will be in a position to underwrite the $3 or $4 trillion it would take for the feds to solve the problem. A lot of optimists think that's how the problem
think about that.
The government's going to step in and make up all
roughly
these
speaking,
deficits. I just think that's unrealistic.
What's this going to do to the municipal bond market?
Well, it already has to some extent, right? So these states that have big pension problems are paying high interest rates, but I think it could come to the point where these states are, not going to be able to raise money in the bond markets at all until they resolve the problem, until they declare a default, restructure debt, restructure pension benefits, and then they can go back and
are bracing for the kind of surge New York has already been living through. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer says President Trump needs to invoke the Defense Production Act.
Our need is right now, and while we see some businesses ramping up, we know that there are going to be people who don't get the kind of care that they need because we just don't have it right now.
In an interview with MSNBC, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called on the president to appoint a military military czar to manage supply, production, and distribution. The president responded on Twitter saying an admiral is already in charge and Schumer should stop complaining. Vice President Mike Pence will have more on the White House response to the pandemic. He sits down for an interview with Bloomberg's David Weston at noon, Wall Street time. Check back for that conversation on Bloomberg Radio and television. The Pentagon now confirms it is looking to provide as many as 100,000 military-style body bags to prepare for the civilian death toll from the coronavirus. FEMA requested those bags, known formally as human remains pouches, through an interagency group that directed the agency to the Defense Department. Russian President Vladimir Putin is extending an order for most Russians to stay off the job till the end of the month. In an address to the nation, he said there will be exceptions for essential industries, and it'll be up to regional authorities to decide what those are. And Saudi Arabia has tightened its lockdown on the Islamic holy cities of Mecca and Medina, saying people will only be allowed to leave their homes for food and for medical reasons between 6 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President, Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
London. Find Unlimited is here to brighten your day. Vodafone and Samsung are giving you the chance to win one of thousands of tech prizes all over the city, including the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G. Play from wherever you are. When we say the word, look for the Vodafone Unlimited symbol near you for your chance to win. Register now at findunlimited.co.uk.
Hiya, it's Mel B. I'm just calling to say whether you're searching for a babe, a boo, or a bit of fun, there's one B you can always rely on. Badoo, the dating app which matches you with people based on your interests. Now more than ever, we want to be connected. You're more than just a photo, so be your true self and connect with a like-minded community. There's a new B in town. Download the Badoo app today. Badoo, date honestly.
This is a vital update from the government about coronavirus. To help save lives, stay at home. Anyone can spread coronavirus. Only leave your home for the following reasons: to shop for basic necessities, to pick up medicine or to provide care to those who need it, to exercise once a day, alone or with members of your household. Only travel to work when you absolutely cannot work from home. If you have to go out for any of these reasons, always stay 2 meters apart. Do not meet others outside your household, even friends and family. Stay home. Protect the NHS. save lives.
At Tesco Mobile, we're here to help you stay connected. You can get the incredible iPhone XS with a dual camera for just $24.99 a month, which means you save £450. Join the 5 million customers staying connected with us. Search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 19th of April. Was $37.49, saving $12.50 monthly over 36 months. Must continue usage agreement with Tesco Mobile for 36 months to achieve saving. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Stay on top of everything happening in the pro wrestling universe with the Body Slamming podcasts on TuneIn. For passionate recaps of the most recent SmackDown to a pro wrestler's perspective on life and culture at large, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
Next time on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with our Washington correspondent about the many political battles being waged in the Capitol over how to deal with the new coronavirus.
You couldn't imagine a president personalizing a crisis with a virus, but somehow that's where we are.
Susan Glasser. Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
The sports world is full of inspirational stories of heroic figures. It also has its fair share of shady characters. For detailed retellings of the darkest sagas in sports, explore TuneIn's documentary podcasts, like 30 for 30's The Sterling Affairs, about the scandalous life and times of the former Clippers owner, Donald Sterling, and Gladiator, which follows Aaron Hernandez's transformation from Super Bowl star to convicted murderer. For these and more, search sports documentaries on the TuneIn app.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your
Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 1.5%, up 322, and the NASDAQ is up 1.1%, up 83. The 10-year is currently down 730.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
If you've tried college but never finished, SNHU lets you transfer up to 90 credits toward your bachelor's degree.
It doesn't matter how old you are, you can do it. You can finish.
Finish your degree at snhu.edu.
People tell you not to panic when the market goes wild, but it's human nature. What you should not do is let it impact your investment decisions. Easier said than done, right? Well, here's what you can do to get your emotions in check before you do something rash. Take a few deep breaths. It really does help combat stress. Consult with a financial expert if you can. You'll get a reality check and put time between your impulse and your actions.
Will markets correct course in the second quarter? One top strategist shares her view on tradingnation.cnbc.com. More Squawk on the Street coming up.
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with a TuneIn podcast. For expert analysis straight from the WWE to Steve Austin's no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
Did you know TuneIn doesn't just live here on your smart speaker? From the audio that moves you to the audio that gets you moving. Soundtrack your every movement with the free TuneIn app. Available on your phone or tablet. Download TuneIn from the App Store today.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to discover what's happening in the app and around the world. Be the first to know about upcoming games and the hottest new music. Follow at TuneIn and always be in the know.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Welcome back to Squawk on the Street. Time now for the Santelli Exchange, and I will send it over to Rick Santelli.
Thanks, David. I'd like to welcome my guest, Zach Pandel from Goldman Sachs. Zach, thanks for joining me today. We all know that these are hard circumstances to deal with and discuss markets, but nonetheless, thank you for joining me. I'd like to get right into it. There's been calls that we need Corona bonds in the U.S. I say we have 2-year, 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, and 30-year, and a Treasury and a Fed that can print a lot of debt, and there seems to be many willing buyers. We don't need them here, but there's a place I think that needs them really bad, and that is Europe. How is Europe going to pay for all the cradle-to-grave services in addition to try to help some of these economies like Italy control the coronavirus when they have so much debt and so little ways to generate new debt?
Right, but it's a great question. What European countries, European policymakers need to figure out is a way to stimulate growth, provide for a recovery within the institutional constraints of Europe. And Corona bonds are one option and something that we think European policymakers should be looking at. But some of this is happening already. I think that's important to stress through the ECB. The ECB is buying the already issued bonds and essentially mutualizing a lot of this debt through its own balance sheets. It buys the bonds, it issues euro notes on the other side, which are a liability of the whole euro area. So to some extent, this is already happening through the ECB's balance sheet. Corona bonds would take us one step further, provide another means to support the economy through the crisis. But I think it's important to recognize that European policymakers are doing a lot, and so we're somewhat encouraged by those steps so far.
Well, Zach, you know, you said that the ECB can buy paper. I get that. So they can put grease in the gears. But our Treasury and our Fed is doing a whole lot more than putting grease in the gears. They're underpinning whole industries. That's what I'm talking about. Who's going to underpin that? For example, France. You take out all the tax collections in France, and what's going to support the system? The bank's best customer, municipalities.
Right. So I would say it's not just about Europe either. When we look at this crisis, we often look at the United States, and the United States has a luxury of being able to issue huge amounts of debt with very little cost in terms of market yields. Many countries just don't have that ability, and I think to some extent Europe is in that camp, especially peripheral Europe, although the ECB is doing what it can to help. But many other countries, especially in emerging market economies, have the same problem. So we have fiscal capacity constraints throughout the world, and that's going to be a key problem in figuring out a way to get out of the crisis. We really hope that the virus itself can be controlled such that countries can stimulate with the resources that they have available. But you're right, Europe does have these fiscal constraints, as well as many emerging market economies. The U.S. really has a luxury that other economies don't in that regard.
Excellent. Zach, it's a complicated topic, and I thought that needed to be underscored. Christine Lagarde truly has her job cut out for her. Thank you for joining me today. Sarah, back to you.
All right, Rick Santelli, thank you. And as you can see, we are building on momentum here, gaining for stocks. The Dow's up 284 points after being negative earlier this morning. S&P up 1.35%. The NASDAQ up almost 1%. Crude oil is the standout here. It's up about 20% or so, Brent. WTI is up about 23% after the president tweets what Joe Kernan had reported to us earlier, and that is a conversation between Saudi Arabia and Russia and an agreement on a production cut. And that is certainly helping the price of oil. Still, keep in mind, oil's down about 60% still for the year. Energy stocks, though, are on the top of the market. We're going to take a quick commercial break and stay on top of this market action on the other side.
A lot of
of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Did you know TuneIn doesn't just live here on your smart speaker? From the audio that moves you to the audio that gets you moving. Soundtrack your every movement with the free TuneIn app. Available on your phone or tablet. Download TuneIn from the App Store today.
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with the TuneIn podcast. For expert analysis straight from the WWE to Steve Austin's no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen. Behind the highlight reels, championship rings, and colossal paychecks, there are sports stories that fuel, deepen, and even challenge our love for the game. For true tales of underdogs, anti-heroes, and game-changing innovators, search sports documentaries on the TuneIn app.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to discover what's happening in the app and around the world. Be the first to know about upcoming games and the hottest new music. Follow at TuneIn and always be in the know.
This is the kind of card that has America talking. With it, people with Medicare are getting all-in-one coverage for their doctor visits, hospital care, prescription drugs, and more. This kind of insurance, called Medicare Part C, may also cover dental care, eyeglasses, hearing aids, fitness programs, vitamins, even healthy meals and rides to the doctor. With this kind of coverage, you do not need a Medicare supplement insurance plan. You will access your benefits through your Medicare Part C plan for one low and oftentimes $0 monthly plan premium. You deserve to get the most from your Medicare benefits. Call now for free information that may help you get more coverage for less money. There is no obligation to enroll. Whether for yourself or someone you love, call the number on the screen now. Call now.
Welcome back. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is pleading with doctors and nurses from all around the country to come to the epicenter of the coronavirus crisis, and that is New York. Our Contessa Brewer is covering that today. Hi, Contessa.
Hi there, Carl. Behind me is a hospital in Kingston, which is about 90 miles north of New York City. They're adding 235 emergency hospital beds inside. That will more than triple the capacity in this county alone. But I just talked to the county executive, and he says he's very worried he's not going to have the medical personnel to staff all that extra capacity. You mentioned the governor putting out this nationwide plea for doctors and nurses. He says, look, we're going to pay you to come in here. And in fact, in many cases, we're going to pay you a lot. New West Staffing Agency, which is a recruiting agency for nurses, says that it has seen hospital pay as high as $10,000 or more per week, plus free housing, plus guaranteed quarantine pay. Fast Staff Recruiting tells us it always pays its nurses as much as 50% more than typical. But Karen Fountain says she has never seen offers this high. She's a traveling nurse who was based in New York City, was exposed to coronavirus, went into quarantine, and now this week is heading back into the epicenter of the crisis. And she says, you know what's bringing her back? It's not the pay.
I think I'm a little apprehensive of going back just because I know how bad it's gotten since I went into quarantine and now I'm out. I'm not scared. I have to go back. There's no way not to. It's my duty. It's my job. I'm a nurse.
So desperate is New York for these nurses to come in here that it's waiving licensing requirements. It says, in fact, if you have a lapsed license from somewhere else, you can go back through, do a one-day training and get relicensed again. They're putting out that national plea. We're waiting to see if it's filled. Fast Staff told us that its applications are up about 300% alone. Carl?
Unbelievable story. We'll see if people respond to that. Contessa, thank you so much. Our Contessa Brewer is in Kingston, New York this morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Squawk Alley. I'm Carl Quintanilla with Morgan Brennan and John Ford coming to you live from different locations this morning. On a fascinating day for markets, futures were relatively weak, but we have added to gains as our Joe Kernan speaks to the president, and then the president tweets about a conversation he had with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, MBS, saying he expects them, after having talked to Putin as well, of a production cut of oil between 10 to $15 million barrels of oil. And John Ford, that has resulted in an almost, I think, got to be unprecedented squeeze in crude, which at one point was up almost 40%.
Certainly has. And Carl, as Jim Cramer has been talking about quite a bit, equities are responding to the oil markets. This morning, it seems to me that a number of networking and broadband players, including our parent Comcast, Verizon, some cloud players are responding particularly positively. Not sure exactly why that is, but on all things stocks, we can go to our senior markets commentator, Mike Santoli, who's with us. Mike, quite a bit of herky-jerky action from the pre-market to now. Any trends that you're picking up on?
I wouldn't say trends, John, that last too long. I mean, I think there's still this kind of choppiness. A little bit of aftershock navigation is what we're trying to deal with right here. I do think it shows you what happens in these really tightly compressed markets like oil was right there, when you have just a hint of something going the other direction, and you're going to get this kind of big exaggerated pop. We're in that zone in a slightly less extreme way with equities too. I mean, right now today we've traded right within yesterday's range. So even though it seems like we've been popping all over the place, we've essentially just sort of operated within the bands that we set yesterday. So I don't think yesterday's 4% decline necessarily did too much damage to the idea that perhaps we're in this bottoming process. Maybe a week ago Monday was okay for a short-term extreme low, but also today's rally doesn't really change the story either, that it could go either way. It's unsatisfying. I do think the conversation perhaps is going to turn a little bit more toward policy stuff again after we saw those jobless claims today, and the question of does the market crave a little more of a cushion from Congress, from Phase 4? We're not hearing a lot on that front, and that might become a little more of a talker.
Yeah, Mike, if I recall, it seems like months ago, but I think it was only a week and a half ago, when the markets took a particularly big plunge. The S&P closed at around 2480, I believe, and has kind of bounced around since then. Given that in the past couple of days, we had the estimate on potential deaths in the U.S., which was a shock to many. We just had this big jobless claims number this morning, and I see the S&P is just above 2,500. Yeah. Does that speak to the kind of potential bottoming that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, if we go to the extreme lows, we were slightly below 2,200 on an intraday basis and closed a little bit above there. So that's the zone that we're now kind of tentatively saying is perhaps some kind of a floor. Now, on the upside, market hasn't really demonstrated all that much except for a bounce so far, but it's very much a day-to-day. So I think that it's one of those deals where we look at these past instances, and I'm going to reach into MBA lore or jargon and say people are saying trust the process, and the process is you tank first, you have awful performance. That would presumably be that 35% straight line drop that we got, and then you're not really good, but you're improving and you're trying to monitor progress, and you're probably going to have some ugly games along the way. But in theory, you get some better draft picks at a pretty good bargain as you try to reinvest, and then maybe you win down the road. So that's where we're looking at right now if we can follow that path.
Mike, I want to go back to crude right now. The move we're seeing in Brent, 30% increase today. Maybe it doesn't feel like a lot after all the volatility we've seen over the past month in the crude market, but in general, from a historical perspective, that is just a huge move. And then, of course, the impact it's having on energy equities as well. We've got President Trump poised to meet with oil executives tomorrow. In the meantime, you have the beginnings of bankruptcies. Whiting, for example, saying that it's going to declare bankruptcy yesterday, and that seems to be rippling out into the credit market and causing some angst there as well. So how much, if we were to actually see some sort of deal, how much does that actually calm something like the credit market?
I think you'd have to see it build from here, Morgan, to really calm the credit markets. If you're looking at implied default rates and energy high yield debt, it's relatively extreme at this point, and really that's not going to be rectified by crude oil trading in the mid-20s necessarily, unless it really did stay there for a while. So I think that the bar is relatively high for reversing the process, but to sort of get to a point where you say the energy stocks were just completely sold out and abandoned for months on end. And oil itself was very much a heavy short, and people saw just no relief from it in terms of supply or demand. At least on the supply side, you could say it interrupts that feedback loop for a little while. I will say it's of all the things that have beset these markets and the economy, this is almost the one area where a phone call between leaders can have any material impact. And so you might have just seen it right there.
Yeah, I mean, this is headline risk on steroids, Mike. Dow Jones is now saying that the Kremlin, according to state newswire RIA, the Kremlin denies Putin spoke with the Saudi crown prince. We have seen oil back off, but until we get these production cuts verified and on the books, it's going to be hard to trust, regardless of what the president or state media in Saudi Arabia say.
Although, interestingly, the tell sometimes will be is if the story is refuted and the market still trades higher, it could just mean, again, that it was at such an extreme point that, at least even the hint that there could be some change in that equation is probably enough for today.
Mike, what are you looking for from here, whether it's today, whether it's throughout the rest of the week, as far as how the market behaves, whether it's volume, whether it's reaction to particular news, to get a better sense of where we are?
I think it's a matter of containing the sell-offs. Yesterday was, down 4.5% day on almost every major index, but it was slightly less intense than a week ago Monday. And then a couple rally days in a row. You want to see breadth expand on those rallies. So in other words, you want to have these days, a couple of these days where 80-90% of all volumes to the upside, and volatility will continue in that context probably to drain away a little bit. So it seems like a little more of a trading range as opposed to just this pinball type action that says that there's just no conviction within the market on the buy and sell side. So the market continually has to go these vast distances to find willing buyers and sellers. That's the environment that essentially is very hard to handicap until it settles down.
Yeah, Mike, and just along those lines, as we get the March jobs report tomorrow, which I think is already really being shrugged off, given what we've seen in more real time in terms of unemployment claims, that record 6.6 million reading that we got this morning on top of a record last week. But as we start to get more of this data, which so far has been backdated and has been, in many cases, while weaker, has still been better than expected. I mean, what holds the most stock right now? What matters, if any of it?
I have to say that the incoming numbers, they need to build up a little bit more in the coming weeks and months in order to get some kind of a picture of this arc, this storyline that we're going to be able to tell in terms of whether we've just front-loaded most of the shutdown impact, and that's what's evident in the claims numbers. And then we really are going to be monitoring the wear and tear on business activity along the way, and credit markets and all those things that are knock-on effects, and state budgets and all this other stuff. So I think that the macro data, there's a high burden of proof for when that becomes relevant in an immediate basis. I think you have to have it accumulate for a while now.
Mike, always great to start the show with you, Mike Santoli. Meantime, FEMA making efforts to coordinate medical supplies from around the world in the wake of coronavirus. Elon Moy has the details for us. Elon.
Well, Morgan, President Trump has been talking a lot about a new White House initiative that's designed to get those critical medical supplies to the U.S. faster. It's called Project Airbridge, and essentially FEMA is chartering planes to get the gear from overseas to the U.S. in a matter of hours or even days. This plane left Shanghai yesterday. It arrived in Columbus, Ohio at 6 a.m. this morning. It's carrying 83 metric tons of cargo that includes masks, hand sanitizer. The gloves are from McKesson. Now, the federal government is not directly purchasing this equipment. It's just shipping it. But FEMA told us that the goal is for 50% of the product to go to high-risk counties that have been designated by the government, and the other 50% to go into the private market. Now, there is a lot of frustration among state and local officials over the process for getting these items in the private market. They say that's a free-for-all, while the federal process, they say, is opaque and confusing. In fact, it's not even even clear if all of that equipment that you see in Ohio will even stay in Ohio, if they will even be getting any of it, even though the state has said that it is facing some critical shortages. Now, on Twitter today, President Trump dismissed some of those complaints. He wrote, massive amounts of medical supplies, even hospitals and medical centers, are being delivered directly to states and hospitals by the federal government. Some have insatiable appetites and are never satisfied. Politics? Remember, we are a backup. So, guys, this is a sign that the president is trying to sort of shift the blame from the federal government to the states for the shortage of supplies, even though we know that everyone is scrambling to get their hands on what they need. Morgan?
Yeah, Elon, scrambling being the key word there. I'm curious because even though the air freight data, the traffic is down, we're getting reports that the rates right now to transport some of these goods on airplanes, on aircraft are surging. Any sense of who specifically is working with the government to move these supplies? Is it your FedExes and UPSs of the world, or is it others as well?
So we don't know exactly what is being paid in order to move this critical medical gear. We do know that the White House has convened a supply chain task force. They met at the White House on Sunday. It's being led by Jared Kushner that is trying to coordinate some of these efforts. But part of the frustration that we have had, and also that the state and local leaders are having, is that it's really not clear who is getting this product at the end of the day, where it's going, and how much anyone is getting. So we are trying to find out all those details. Hopefully we'll have some more visibility into this process, but that has been one of the central issues with the supply chain all along. States aren't even sure why they're getting what they're getting and why they're not getting the things that they've asked for.
All right, Elon Moy, thank you, especially during a crisis of this magnitude. I don't think many people are looking at the federal government as a backstop. They're an essential coordinator. Still to come, don't miss FCC Chair Ajit Pai on the agency's latest efforts amid this virus outbreak. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us.
Did you know TuneIn doesn't just live here on your smart speaker? From the audio that moves you to the audio that gets you moving. Soundtrack your every movement with the free TuneIn app. Available on your phone or tablet. Download TuneIn from the App Store today.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to discover what's happening in the app and around the world. Be the first to know about upcoming games and the hottest new music. Follow at TuneIn and always be in the know.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with a TuneIn podcast. For expert analysis straight from the WWE to Steve Austin's no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen. Not all heroes wear capes, but most wear tights.
And here we go, now it's underway. Cover on Rowan, wins.
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with a TuneIn podcast. For expert analysis of the latest WrestleMania, turn on the WWE podcast. Or listen to the Steve Austin Show for no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities.
It's good to be here tonight. It's an empty building.
For these and more, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling.
6 a.m. Eastern. Watch and listen live on the CNBC app.
Hi, I'm Hanno. I created Gabi because most people overpay on car insurance. Gabi is a free tool that saves you money by finding the best deal. Gabi users save more than $800 per year on average. Go to Gabi.com and stop overpaying for car insurance.
We are KiwiCo, and we deliver hands-on STEM projects designed to inspire young innovators. Kids of all ages can explore science, engineering, art, and more. Get your first month free. Visit trykiwico.com.
For every staircase supporting a grand entrance, door frames marking milestones, floors kissed by bare feet, and walls making room for new memories. Protect the pure joy of home with Terminix. We're committed to keeping termites out of your home with our all-new On Guard termite protection system. Always backed by the Terminix promise to keep your home strong enough for all the love it holds.
Well, in a day when we've got record jobless claims and multiple people who are working or trying to work from home, joining us to talk once again about cybersecurity risks for business due to the coronavirus is Herjavec Group CEO and Shark Tank investor Robert Herjavec. Robert, good morning. Great to have you back.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Morgan. Good morning, Carl. Thanks for having me.
Robert, I want to start with small business and the employment picture. Many people know you from Shark Tank as an investor in small businesses, startup businesses. These weekly jobless claims are at 6.6 million, double last week's record number. We just last hour had Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan on. He was talking about small business and questions about how tough it is for them going through this period, how hard it might be for them to recover. What are you advising your invested companies to do when it comes to employees these days? Do you think they're going to be able to hold on to them? Are they going to have to let many go?
Yeah, it's really tough. I saw that report. We've been advising our small businesses, and I've been talking to a lot of small businesses every day, and it's really painful. And these numbers are of biblical proportions. The key for every small business is you have to survive. And I think it's easy to say, don't let anybody go and do the right thing. But nobody really knows how long this is going to last. And our advice to small businesses, make your own decision because you have to survive. If the business doesn't survive, there's nothing to come back to. And a lot of our businesses that, they kind of break into two camps, people that saw it coming and moved quickly, and now people that are seeing the reality of these numbers. And I think we're going to see even more layoffs in April.
Wow. Does this come down to the importance of cash and having access to it, having it on hand?
Yeah. The first thing we said to all our businesses and our advice to all the small businesses out there is hoard cash. I mean, not physically in your house, but in your bank account. Take anything on your balance sheet that you can put into liquid cash right now and do that. And then look at all your expenses and put them off. And I know that's awful. And I know that every time you don't pay a bill, that's another business that's affected. But you guys know yesterday was rent day. And I got to tell you, my gut feel tells me very few people paid rent today. And now we're going to start seeing the ripple effect of that.
Yeah, certainly a lot of ripple effects. I'm curious, I want to get your take on the CARES Act and what that's going to mean for small businesses, especially since tomorrow is the day where they can begin to connect with their lenders and start to take on these loans, hopefully, I guess potentially on a first come, first served basis to be able to weather this situation. Is it going to be enough? Is it clear enough what companies are going to be able to have to do and the steps they're going to have to take to be able to hook into this government assistance?
Well, Morgan, first of all, I think the government's done an amazing job with the CARES Act. I am so happy and optimistic with the amount of stimulus that's being put in. I do think, by the way, we're going to need another stimulus act in about a month. Here's the challenge. Everybody is going to file immediately. It's kind of like the unemployment numbers. I saw a report you guys were doing. People can't get through on unemployment. Think about how many people are going to file for this right now. I think there's going to be a challenge in getting it out there, but it's coming. And again, you've got to survive in order to get that stimulus. If your business isn't around, there's no point in getting the stimulus. But I think you got to apply right away, and you got to make sure that you can qualify for it. But it's a great program.
Yeah, we'll see what the execution's like. It's going to be tough. We'll see how the servers perform tomorrow, Robert. I want to go back to your point about rent. I'm looking at some forecasts of potential mortgage delinquencies. I'm seeing numbers that you might see 10 to 12% this month. How high do you think that number can get?
Oh, I think it's going to be quite a bit higher than that. I really got to tell you, I don't think, I think people that have a business and the general population are going down different tracks. I think people that have a small business or even a medium-sized business or even a large business in some cases, the reality of this situation is very stark for them. And anything they can do to push off costs or expenses, they're doing right now. So I don't know if the delinquencies are going to be high. It all depends how long it goes. But for the next 2 to 3 months, a lot of people aren't going to pay their rent. A lot of people are going to push off those kind of bills. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If the entire population goes back at once, which I don't think is going to happen, but if parts of the population start going back, things are going to slowly return. But the next 2 months are going to be brutal for mortgages, for commercial paper, for leases. And here's the reality. What are the commercial landlords going to do? They're not going to kick anybody out right now because it's not like anybody is looking for office space right now. So they're just going to have to take it.
Yeah, and then of course you've got so many more companies with their workforces operating remotely right now, and you got to think that some of that might actually become a more permanent structural change as well. And what is that going to do for commercial real estate longer term? Which actually brings me to another question on another topic for you, Robert, and that's there's a lot of focus on privacy right now on some of these different apps that are being used so heavily. Zoom, for example, today, which has doubled its user numbers and done so very rapidly. How do businesses and then, of course, now consumers and students and employees navigate those privacy issues and make sure that what they're doing online right now is secure and safe?
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. This is the golden age for hackers and people like that. I mean, you couldn't have picked a more perfect time to hack somebody. So, we run a pretty large cybersecurity business, and we're seeing alert volumes way up, and we're seeing the amount of IR, which is remediation work, people that have been breached, way up. We've seen more work in the last 3 weeks in that area than in the last 16 years. So the hackers are definitely out there. In terms of Zoom, there's a lot of privacy settings in Zoom. If you just go to settings and you can add passwords, you can add encryption. And a lot of people aren't doing that because you're just rushing to Zoom. So we really encourage people to do that. The second part of that is phishing. 85% of all malware still comes through phishing attacks. And phishing preys on our ego, on our vanity, and on our weaknesses. People are looking for information right now. So we're seeing a lot of COVID-19 update or how to apply for an SBA loan update and all those kind of things. And we're encouraging people to be very, very careful with those. If you don't know the link, one of the easy ways to do is hover over the link when somebody sends you an email. And when you hover over it, and if it doesn't appear the way it is in the email, it could be a phishing attack. So just be very careful. And the final point that we're seeing, Morgan, is a lot of people that work for big companies are working from home with secure connections, meaning they have a secure laptop or a secure connection. But here's the challenge. They go out to the bathroom or they go get breakfast. They leave their laptop open and their teenager comes along and starts opening another session. So you've got to make sure that every time you're on a secure connection, you're not using it, make sure you log out and log back in.
Robert, a lot of great information. We started off talking broadly about small business, got into some cybersecurity. I want to get a little micro with you. Talk to us about how you're managing your business right now, maybe some changes over the past week as we've gotten more clarity on the depth of this situation and some measures that you're prepared to take to make sure that as much as possible your assets remain healthy.
Yeah, I have to tell you, one of the things that's been really hard for us, I mean, we have 350 employees, and about 3 weeks ago, went through a pretty dark time because, you always think I've spent a lifetime building my business and my reputation and my brand, and the thought of it possibly all going is really scary. I don't care if you're a shark. I don't care how much money you're worth. I don't care if you're a small business. People take a lot of pride in their small businesses. Nobody starts a small business just for a paycheck. They have their entire ego and who they are and everything tied into that. And so it's been really hard. And then, you have to let some people go. In our case, we had to do some initial layoffs in non-essential services. so that we could actually increase our services people. It was about 8% of our staff. And I got to tell you, it's brutal. It's absolutely painfully brutal. You feel guilty, you feel bad, but I always like to think of it that we still have over 300 people that I feel incredible responsibility to. And we're seeing a bit of an uptick in our business now. So I'm optimistic, but I think the emotion for every small business owner is really difficult. And what we're telling people is the one thing you have to control is yourself. You cannot panic. You cannot let somebody else make you feel guilty for the decisions you have to make for your own business. And nobody started a business to take the easy road. And this is a hard road, and we're going to get through it. But you got to make sure that you survive to see the light at the end of this tunnel.
Well, Robert, so many small business owners can relate to exactly what you're saying, and we see the pain for workers reflected in this big number this morning. Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for being with us.